I hope all you lovely people had a nice little stretch there and are ready for some more Kant. Or can't you handle the Kant? Oh, puns are fun. I won't do that again. All right. So I ended the last video with the idea that the will, according to Kant, this refers to our capacity to act according to maxims. And maxims just represent what we think we're doing and why we're doing it. So you're thinking you're watching a video right now. Hey, you probably are, unless it's dreaming, I guess. And then why you're watching the video. Yeah, so what it is you think you're doing and why you are doing that. And now we can go back to the opening of the chapter of the reading. So again, because we want to understand again, remember, we want to know what makes a will good. What's this thing that's good without limitation, as he says the goodwill is. And so, it's something, as he says there in that opening passage, that this goodwill is going to have unconditional value. It's going to be good without limitation. And so what does that mean? Well, he starts to flesh out the idea here. So let's go back to that page 9 passage there. Here we can see Kant start listing a whole bunch of different things in this opening section on page 9. So, and again, these listing out all these different things, I think are things you probably think are really good. Because first we have these talents of the mind, like understanding, wit, and judgment. And hey, again, I think these are things you probably think are good. Intelligence, wit, and good judgment. Hey, sounds great. Well, sign me up. I think these are all things you would hopefully want to have. And let's go back to some more good things. Go back to page 9 there. We'll go back on up there. We also see here our Kant list out these qualities of temperament, like confidence, resolve, and persistency of intent. And if you just jump to the top of the next page, on page 10 there, if you scroll on up on page 10, you see Kant even names some more qualities of temperament, including moderation in affects and passions, self-control, and sober deliberation. Hey, so a lot of qualities of temperament, kind of attitudinal things, how you, deal with your feelings and stuff like that. Kant's talking about. These seem to be all pretty good things to have for your temperament. And now we can go back to page 9 there. Go back to page 9. Where were we there on page 9? I'll scroll up a little bit here. And now here we see Kant also talks about gifts of fortune, power, riches, honor, and even health. Again, all these power, riches, health. Oh, wow, this sounds like a Christmas list. Yeah, these are things people tend to want. So what's the problem with these? Why are these goods all limited according to Kant? Or to put it differently, Kant is going to say these are all conditional goods. Conditional goods, the title of this video. These are all conditional goods, because what he's saying is these things all might be good, but they're only good under certain conditions. Hence, they are conditional goods. So why is that? Why are these things good only under certain conditions? Well, I like Kant's response here. This is another cute little response we're getting, because I think it's kind of obvious once we say it. That maybe never occurred to us, though, but it's nice. So let's go back to page 9 here. Page 9. For Kant's answer. He says that all these talents, temperaments, and gifts can also be extremely evil and harmful if the will that is to make use of these gifts of nature is not good. And hey, let's just jump on ahead to page 10, jump to page 10 there, and that's the next page. Scroll on up, you can see Kant say, "For without principles of a good will, these things, they can become the most evil, and the cold blood of a scoundrel makes him not only far more dangerous, but also immediately more loathsome in our eyes than he would have been taken to be without it." So what Kant is saying here, this is really cool, I love this, is that all these good things, all these things we think are good, and a utilitarian might want to spread out, because they'll make people happy, right? Well, we'll come to happiness in a moment. But if these things, these gifts, these talents, these abilities, if they end up in the wrong hands, things can go really bad. Think about Lex Luthor. You guys know who Lex Luthor is? He's the bad guy, the supervillain in Superman. He's Superman's arch nemesis, played by a wide range of bald actors, I guess, or actors looking bald. Anyway, Lex Luthor, Superman's nemesis, the bad guy. And that's the guy Superman's always trying to stop. Now, I don't know if you know this, but what makes Lex Luthor so dangerous? Because he doesn't have superpowers like Superman, right? Superman. No, Lex Luthor is just a normal human being, maybe he's not normal, but he is a human, because the idea is he has almost all of these talents, temperaments, and gifts that Kant is talking about. Lex Luthor is rich. Lex Luthor knows how to influence people. Lex Luthor, I guess, has good health, right? And definitely Lex Luthor has great intelligence and wit, and Lex Luthor is very, very hardworking. But Lex Luthor, obviously, he's the bad guy. He does not have a good will. He uses all of these talents, traits, and abilities, and temperaments and gifts of fortune. He uses them all for evil. And so what Kant is saying here is, yeah, you have all these talents, temperaments, and gifts, but you have to actually have a good will so that they're good, that they're used for good. Otherwise, they can be put to great mischief and evil, he says. So yeah, that's why all these talents, temperaments, and gifts are conditional goods. They depend on there being also being a good will involved. Because otherwise, you're just making criminals into super criminals with all these things. And Kant doesn't even stop there. Go back to page 9. I already kind of mentioned this already. Let's go back to page 9. We can see here Kant talks about perhaps the greatest gift of fortune of them all, which he calls the entire well-being and contentment with one's condition, which he names under the name of happiness. So yeah, Kant is saying that happiness itself, yeah, maybe again, one of the greatest of all gifts of fortune, but it's still a limited or conditional good. And just by the way, just so we're clear, I think it's safe to say that when Kant talks about happiness, he seems to be assuming a preference satisfaction view of happiness, like we saw in Ayn Rand. Remember, Ayn Rand said happiness is preference satisfaction. And we just mean that happiness is the satisfaction of one's values and preferences. It's getting what you want. And that's what Kant seems to mean in that quote that I read, because he's talking about, being contented. You have what it is you're looking for. But again, this is still going to be, according to Kant, getting what you want, being happy is still a conditional good. And he says, if you continue on page 9, we can see why he thinks this. So you can see why Kant doesn't like happiness as the foundation of morality, because he says, a rational, impartial spectator can never more take any delight in the sight of the uninterrupted prosperity of a being adorned with no feature of a pure and good will, and that a good will seems to constitute the indispensable condition even of worthiness to be happy. So just to take an example here. So imagine, you're looking at the tyrannical ruler of a country like North Korea. Yeah, so name your tyrannical ruler. And now compare them to the human rights activist who also lives in that country. Now, the human rights activist in North Korea probably just wants to feed, their fellow citizens, their fellow people, but instead that activist doesn't get what they want. That activist is probably thrown in jail or worse. So that human rights activist is miserable, right? None of their preferences are satisfied. And so that rights activist is definitely not happy. But now compare that again to the tyrannical ruler. They seem to be getting everything they want. All their preferences seem to be satisfied, or at least a lot of their preferences. Maybe not everything, but a lot of them are satisfied. And so they might seem blissfully happy, because they're getting everything they want. They're content because they're getting the stuff they want. They want something, they got it. But an impartial spectator, Kant says, would be watching all this horrified. Because if anyone deserves to be happy, of course, it's the human rights activists. They're actually trying to do good for other people. And the despot, the tyrannical ruler, that's the person who absolutely shouldn't be happy. So again, happiness is a pretty limited or conditional good if a terrible human being can possess it. And a person who deserves it lacks it. And that boom, I should be louder there, but I'm kind of tired. With this, Kant has completely rejected ethical egoism and utilitarianism. Because remember, both these theories are driven by the idea that happiness is the moral good, the only moral good. It's just whose happiness, right? Mine or everyone's, fine. But Kant here is saying happiness is morally worthless. Look, if truly good people can be unhappy, and if truly evil people can be happy. So again, good people, the human rights activist is miserable, unhappy. The truly evil, the despot, the tyrant, they're happy. That seems awful. Someone impartial watching this is horrified. And so now we can step back and be like, wow, even happiness now. So wow, we're really in a different place than we've seen before. But what Kant is starting to do here with this discussion of all these things is he's basically saying literally every single thing you can produce with your actions, happiness, intelligence, wit, whatever it is your actions can create for you or others, these are conditional goods. They have no moral value in and of themselves, because all these things your actions can produce could be directed towards evil. I mean, if you go to page 10 there, scrolling up, you can see what Kant is saying there. Kant is saying that a goodwill is good, not because of what it affects or accomplishes, not because of its fitness to attain some intended end, but good just by its willing, i.e. in itself. And so there it is. There's his absolute rejection of teleology. You know, teleology says the goodness of outcomes is the only thing that has intrinsic moral value. And Kant is saying all that is morally irrelevant, because all the things, all the outcomes, all the goodness of your outcomes are all conditionally good, because they could contribute to profound evil in the wrong hands. Heck, even think about that example. Remember old Peter Singer? You're walking by the pond, there's the kid drowning, and it seems obvious we should rescue that kid from drowning. And it sees like, oh, hey, that's a pretty good outcome. Prove me wrong, Kant. And Kant says, well, bad news, Buttercup. You just saved Hitler. No, I saved Hitler. Yeah, right? Who you save matters, and it turns out to be someone. I don't know why I'm laughing. It just cracks me up. You wade in the water, and you look, and it's baby Hitler. Oh, man, you can't win. You see, it's conditionally good on who you save. Saving a life. Wow, I know. Go back to page 10 now. So scroll on up a little bit on page 10. Here you can see Kant saying, if despite its greatest striving, it should still accomplish nothing, and only the goodwill were to remain, then like a jewel, it would still shine by itself as something that has its full worth in itself. And so with that, Kant is straight up saying a goodwill can exist even if it fails to produce anything. Anything. You might have a goodwill and you just have bad luck. Everything you do produces unintended bad consequences. Kant says that's possible, but you're still a good person because you had the goodwill. You're just unlucky, right? And so that's what Kant's saying. Even if you produce nothing good in your actions, if you have a goodwill, you're still a good person. And so what we're seeing here now is, wow, I can't even look at your actions now, because if I look at your actions, I'm just going to see what you're producing with them. And Kant says that's all conditionally good on all sorts of stuff, right? So I can't look at what you're producing in the world. Goodness of outcomes is morally irrelevant. So none of that stuff is going to tell me whether or not you're doing the right thing, because your actions and your consequences have no moral value in and of themselves, because all that, your actions and their consequences, could all be put to evil use. And so what the heck then is a goodwill? What's going to make this goodwill actually be good, especially if it's not the outcomes and the consequences? How can something be good if it's not producing good things? And so far, all we can say is that, well, it's, again, our will is our capacity to act on maxims, and our maxims are a way to represent our intentions, what it is we think we're doing and why we're doing it. And so the goodwill is going to somehow have to be bound up with these maxims and these intentions, because if the goodwill is going to act on certain kinds of maxims and not the bad kind, I guess. But beyond that, the goodness of the goodwill is kind of mysterious. And before I try to go and solve that mystery any further, we'll get there eventually. Let's have a snack break. I'm already hungry. You snack, I snack, we all snack. I hope I have Cheetos. I might have, oh God, no. I've been snacking a lot. I'll check and see. Hopefully I have some. You'll know if I'm smiling when you see me next. All right, so let's go snack, and then we can come back and try to figure out what actually makes the goodwill, well, good.